Hey there! Welcome to episode 19 of an ongoing series where we basically take the camera anywhere we want and we try to find secrets and new discoveries to some of our favorite games. This episode is a beast. We have a ton of special guests. We just had an amazing intro from Michael Chin 1994 and we have enough content to choke a big Goron, so we gotta get this started.
This is where the adventure of Ocarina of Time begins. Here we find the Great Deku Tree having his first fated conversation with Navi. If we were to zoom outward from this scene, we can see... Wait, is that Link? Yep, that's right. Off to the side of the map, you can find Link clearly eavesdropping about his destiny. In truth, Link's model needs to be in nearly every cutscene for some reason. Now, if we were to search around the crown of the Great Deku Tree, you won't find too much of interest. He doesn't even have pupils under those wooden eyebrows. However, you can see how enormous he is from a bird's eye view. With or without pupils, the guardian deity of the Kokiri tribe is truly majestic.
So despite the fact that I have a ton of guests, you're still going to hear a lot from me, which is a really true testament to how big this episode actually is. Try not to be too disappointed. And so the very first thing that we're going to be looking at is the very first room that's in the actual game. Link's room! So once you remove the texture wall, you can actually see that there's a full 3D room that's mostly green, but if there's any objects at all, they're oftentimes different colors. And in this case, Link's bed is blue. Hey, have you ever wondered what the Deku Scrub looked like without its leafy hair? Well, there you go. I'm sure the Deku Scrub does not appreciate that we took away its toupee, mostly because he has no scalp on the top of his head.
Today we're looking at Hyrule's transgender rep, the mysterious Sheik. All seems pretty normal so far, yeah? Well, let Qisas do his thing and bam! Sheik's face revealed. Pretty standard looking. Not quite as pretty as Zelda. Oh, going a bit close there. It's looking pretty serious. Here it seems she's speaking in some sort of code. Os-kusk F. Wonder what she's saying. Whatever it is, she looks pretty serious about it.
Here we have the select screen. Isn't it a memorable place? What if I told you that it wasn't just a screen and that it was an actual room? That's right, if you zoom out, you can see that the moving background is actually a small rotating box. The walls disappear periodically, so the actual file selector doesn't get covered while you're looking at it. I never would have guessed.
So in the scene where Deku Tree is telling a story to Link, he describes Ganondorf. And in the scene you see Ganondorf riding his horse through a wall of fire. Well, where is he exactly? Well, mostly he's just in the void, but as you can see, he's riding through two walls of fire. And in fact, if you're a fan of Back to the Future, you may be reminiscent of a certain DeLorean that went certainly into the past, which certainly ties into the theme of time travel, which also fits into the theme, well, this game? Yeah? Am I stretching? Maybe a little bit.
Let's take away those particle effects and all that stuff and take a closer look as to what Nayru actually looks like. I don't know if it's Nayru or Nayru, whatever. Now, as we glitch through these mountains, it is revealed that Nayru is indeed an Oscar. And the Oscar goes to... Am I right? Am I right? Why not stop it? Why stop it there? Let's look at the other goddesses and see if they have a similar resemblance in this needle square soundstage of theirs. And oh, look, Dean, they all look the same to me. I don't know how they tell each other apart, but I guess it's not that hard considering there's only 3 of them. But they're all Oscars. Would you look at that? Just neat little Oscars, just sitting still forever.
Is one of gaming's biggest trolls. Do you want me to repeat everything I just said? No! But of course I'm gonna keep pressing A even though I didn't want you to. K-Pora Gaybora. I tried my best. If that's not how it's pronounced, I apologize. It's a very iconic figure from the Ocarina of Time. So does he hold any secrets? Well, yeah, technically he does. Even though he always looks a little bit irate, a little bit surly and angry because of his big bushy eyebrows, beneath those eyebrows is a very chill, laid-back, lazy look to his eyes that you could never see otherwise. Like Wise, the potato chips, which also features an owl. So this next one was a huge viewer request. Just kidding. And it's about what you see outside the window in this room. In this room, you can actually see Hyrule Field outside the window. But really quick, what's cool about it is that if you take the camera outside of the room, you can see the full texture that describes what Hyrule Field is supposed to look like from this view. Hello! Welcome to the Super Smash Bros. 64 episode of Boundary Break. Wait, what? Wait, we're still in Ocarina of Time? Look at that! I never realized that Hyrule Castle in Ocarina of Time played a really heavy influence on the stage design of Hyrule Castle in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64. Granted, you could have seen this for yourself, but there's gonna be some people, like myself, that never really made the connection, and so I included it in this clip. Alright, a lot of people asked about the Lost Woods and want to know what it looked like when you zoomed out, just to see if whether or not it showed the entire maze, or what? What exactly do we see? Well, if we zoom it out, we can actually see that no, unfortunately not all the rooms are rendered in, but there is a very interesting thing about it, and that is that when the exits have a really sharp triangle, that means that it's going to send you back to a starting point. But if the path is more square, you're good to continue through the maze.
Now let's take a look at these neat little things called Qisas. They're pretty much just bats, but you know, they gotta have a different name because they're in a different universe or something. And at first glance, it looks kind of like a horse face, and then depending on the angle, now it's like a normal bat with red eyes and trying to kill you and stuff. Now this is a fire Qis though, and this one looks a little less menacing, to be honest. I mean, it helps that it's got black eyes along with its albino figurine. Kind of looks like a rat that my sister owned. I want a rat again. Rats are cute, you know, when they're not on fire, that is.
Alright, so now we're going to do beta rooms. Yes, plural. And the first one that we're going to be looking at is this one with some strange designs. Now, I didn't think much of it at first. I was just like, oh, it's a bunch of triangles and they're making a nice colorful design with it. But there's actually a lot more to it than that. If we zoom the camera out and get Link to look at as much of the stage as possible, we can actually see that this design spells out the initials SRD. And I didn't know what that meant at all at first. So I Googled it. I had Googled SRD Ocarina of Time, and an Iwata Asks interview popped up, which answers everything. So the quote goes, "At the time, you were in charge of camera programming?" I'm going to botch these names and I apologize. Kayago says, "Yes, but SRD, which Iwaki-san belongs to, was in charge of camera programming for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, so I participated as an advisor." It goes on to explain that the SRD company was a company established in 1979 that contracts to develop video game software programs and develops and sells CAD packages. So SRD as a company, they were in charge of the camera programming, and they clearly made this beta room and gave a little nod to themselves. Very cool.
Okay, what do we got here? We are the first room. This is an unused room that we have no idea what. I mean, okay, we see some gears and stuff. Or I want to say that there's some tracks. It's like it's going in a circle. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the Boo merry-go-round from Super Mario 64. It looks like something similar to that. I don't know what's up with the walls, but I mean, with the floor made like, you know, powering a merry-go-round or like some shit. Oh, you know what this could be? This looks like it could be like the graveyard area. This could be directly under the windmill in Kakariko Village. I mean, you go up to the windmill like diagonally, but this could be directly under it. That's why they have gears.
As with every video game development team, the staff needs a beta room to test various aspects of the game in. This includes physics, mechanics, and the like. This particular beta room for Ocarina of Time doesn't have a lot in it, but it is quite interesting. There are platforms to test Link's jumping ability, all different colors of the rainbow. Is Nintendo trying to tell us something? Maybe I've been reading too much fanfiction. Anyway, there's a large body of water included to test the Hero of Time swimming mechanics as well. I'm sure this was used to test the animations of swimming and whatnot, and also how Link would climb up out of the water. There's also a big ramp setup in case the team wanted to pull any sick skateboard tricks. Just kidding, it's to test the sliding mechanics and animations. And ladders also make an appearance in the beta room, although they don't work. I could never climb up one of those on the first try anyways. As we zoom out, we can see the beta room isn't that big at all. It's just a small room, a body of water, a ramp, a tower, etc. I bet the dev team spent a lot of time messing around here though.
Yeah, there are a lot of beta rooms. So in this particular beta room, there is unique walls and pillars to the room itself, and there's actually a double door that you cannot open, and I took the camera through there, and unfortunately there's just nothing out there. And when you step into the portal, it takes you to the Death Mountain crater. So here is the last beta room that we're going to be looking at, and it's all about the items. What's really cool about this beta room is that all the walls have different textures, different from anything you can find in the game. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what are inside those boxes. I checked them all. I can guarantee that it's every key item in the game, so we just don't need to waste our time looking at all of them. But one thing in particular that's actually really cool is that there's a beta heart piece. Now, there is full heart containers in Ocarina of Time, but none of them look like this one. Are you ready to have your perception of reality altered? Well, check this out. When we zoom out the camera to the Hyrule Marketplace, you can begin to see that we were just walking on a completely flat texture the entire time, but much like Link's house, an environment still remains. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be asking about all the other areas that have 2D textures. Don't worry, we are going to get to them someday, just not in this episode. Because if we did, that would probably add another 20 minutes to it. But here's another cool tidbit to Hyrule Marketplace. The crowd huddling the shop have their own faces. Now, one has to wonder why they bothered giving them faces if they're so, well, for a lack of a better term, hideous. But it's amazing in itself that they have one at all. And here's a nice little tour of Zelda's garden zoomed out. It's really cool to see nearly all of it all at once, but let's be honest, we kind of want a better look at it, don't we? Well, fortunately for us, there's a beta version of Zelda's Garden that lets you do just that. Now, while the room is a little bit glitchy, I can show you a little bit of it and just kind of give you a small idea of what it would have looked like if we had full control of the camera while in this area.
Alright, this is where we bugged that one guard. And it's funny, it's like, hey you, don't cause any trouble. And I'm like here, I'm like, dude, you see me, why don't you just throw me out? Is this guy's model not even finished? Dude, his model's not even fucking complete, what the fuck? Yo, he's like half a person. Boy, if you don't get your like half paper thin he's telling me not to cause you trouble? Dude, you're causing my head a trouble. Dude, you're giving me a headache. I mean, just looking at you is giving me a headache, man. But even then, man, this room... Yo, what kind of optical illusion nonsense, dude? This is hurting my head. Oh my god, dude. I can't wait to see what the next one is. But as soon as we zoom in, I know these things are going to be low res as Yep, and we're going to zoom in some more. That's like less than 144p. What kind of nonsense? Like, you can barely make out that, like, Mario's supposed to have wings on his cap. And I don't even know what Peach is supposed to be. Like... Jeez, that's like Chibi Peach, Luigi, man. I bet those assets are like pulled from like beta of Super Mario Kart 64 or some shit.
Ugh. Yeah, sorry. For some reason, young Zelda really creeps me out. But that's not the point of this clip. The point of this clip is to see the King of Hyrule is in that scene where Ganondorf is bowing to him. Well, is he? No, he's not. In fact, the developers were so conscious of the fact that we were never going to see anywhere past Ganondorf that they decided not to render anything past Ganondorf. King Dodongo. Now, why are we looking at King Dodongo today? Well, Once you defeat King Dodongo, his body begins to change color, and the player is allowed to see as much as his head down to his neck that he's dying and that basically his skin is changing color as a result of that. But if we take the camera below the surface, it actually reveals that his entire body is changing colors as well. Now, there's not really a reason for the developers to do that, seeing as not every texture on Dodongo's body matches the same on his head and neck. But, as you can see, they went through the trouble anyway.
Okay, so what we see here, we see Princess Rudo being a prissy little princess when, oh, Karma's a bitch. Yep, remember that, kids. Remember that. Okay, but when let's just take a little closer at that scene again. And what do we see here? No, she's just fine, just levitating on the air like nobody's business, you know? I think she's perfectly fine. I think she's just, you know, complaining as usual about things that aren't necessarily a bad thing. She floats. That's about it.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about with the shop owners in Ocarina of Time, so I'm going to just condense it down to the most interesting. And the first one we're going to talk about is the Bazaar shop owner in Hyrule. Now, in Majora's Mask, the very same character is actually shown with legs, but in Ocarina of Time, he did not have those. In fact, he looks extremely hilarious without his legs. Now, this actually was a viewer request because a lot of people seem to have a very huge fascination with the Bomb Chew Girl. So the question then becomes, what does she look like behind the desk? Well, the answer is not too much different from the Bazaar shop owner. Unfortunate for all of you fans out there. And then, in a very bizarre twist to this segment, there is one shopkeeper who has his legs! And that is to Kokiri's shop owner, who is trying to get over the desk to sell his shop goods to you. Now, one has to ask, why would you make your shop desk way higher than your actual self? But at least the developers had a little bit of humor behind it and made the little shopkeeper jump up to make eye contact with us. For some reason, I never really put this together. I always just thought he was just a bouncy little guy. But now it makes more sense. He's actually bouncing up and down to try to actually see you as he's trying to sell his stuff. Now, in my announcement video, this is one of the most highly voted suggestions in the comments section. People wanted a little bit of a tour of the Sage Room, and I don't blame them. It's always been riddled in mystery, but unfortunately you do kind of get to see everything already within the game. It's just that if you're not paying attention, it seems mysterious because there's a lot of close-ups and whatnot. But just so that we're in the clear, I decided to put it in the episode anyway, so that you guys can take a look. It's still really cool. I do wish there was actually a way to go back to the Sage Room on your own time and just kind of move the camera around and just take a look and just kind of absorb this in as much as you'd like to see it. But unfortunately, it is relegated to cutscene only.
Oh boy, this part always got me. It always got me thinking. I'm like, where does Ganondorf really go? Does he shrink, or something? Because I'm pretty sure like all the models are rendered or put together like with individual slabs and stuff. Yo, that beat that. Oh, that's where the motherfucker is. Okay, damn, he's just chilling. Does he rise out of the floor when you like activate the boss, or does he just like zip to the arena? Okay, so yeah, he zips to like he zips behind you. Alright, he's gonna go into the painting and okay, yeah, he shrinks. Okay, he flattens and shrinks. Okay, I knew it. I knew he didn't disappear. And then like, okay, and he renders right afterwards where he's gonna jump out.
Now we're in the boss room of the fire temple, and here we have the subterranean lava dragon, Volvagia. But if we were to look from a different angle and view right below the arena, we can find, yep, that's Volvagia, scrunched tightly before popping up from the crater, waiting for when the cutscene activates its entrance, sort of like a can of snakes popping up on Link. As we can see, a majority of his body is cut when he springs outside a crater. He's slowly going back down, and as he's flying out, his body is in a circular motion, unwinding like a corkscrew, presumably to save space when loading this animation of Volvagia.
And here we have one of the most famous Ocarina of Time scenes, the battle room with Dark Link in the Water Temple. So obviously the way he works is that you walk away from the seemingly empty island, he'll turn up on it, watching you. And here Qisas does some of his camera magic to show exactly when Dark Link appears on the island. The dude is magic, I'm telling you. Walking... Dark Link. They seem to be having a bit of a standoff, but Link's facing the wrong way. Ah well, we can't all get it right.
Oh, okay. So we're starting to see that all the bosses are actually loaded into the room before the cutscene starts. So now we get to play the fun game of where's every boss before the boss fight starts. Alright, Morpha, where you at, girl? I don't know. Morpha's a girl to me, I guess. Morpha's a very girly name. Ah, there it is. You ugly tonsil soccer ball. Bongo Bongo is an exception to this rule, and he does not show up before the boss fight. But Bongo Bongo has his own little interesting tidbit here. For one thing, he hangs from the ceiling, but you never got to see how much of him they actually show, and in this scene we show that off. So a lot of people are asking about this shark, and I don't blame them. It's a very odd and mysterious aspect of the game. So what happens when we take the camera over to him? Well, it's actually kind of funny. It's pseudo 3D. The object does bend into a 3D image, but it's not rendered whatsoever beyond what you're supposed to be able to see in the game. So he's almost like a papercraft mirage. It's very clever.
So this one was apparently a hot suggestion, yeah, which is free camera on Death Mountain, including our friend Big Goron. The smoke halo looks sort of weird against the black sky. And here you can see Nintendo fooled us. It's not a full mountain, only the cliff face is actually rendered. And that's the path leading towards the Fire Temple. And if we zoom out we can see the scale of the whole map. Bigger than I thought it'd be actually. The battle music's not quite fitting for an epic panning shot though.
Here's a really good suggestion that I got. So, in the Zoro domain, you got two options. You can either be a kid and swim in the water, but you don't have iron boots, or you can be an adult and have the iron boots, but the Zoro domain is filled with ice, so you can't travel through it. Well, neither of those options help you get to this area, which is a little alcove that's near the standing platform. Clearly this was meant to hide something, whether it be rupees or a heart piece, but they scrapped the idea. Yeah, I almost left this one out, but a lot of people requested it. So what happens when the twisted hallway straightens itself out in the Forest Temple? Well, the answer's a little underwhelming. Apparently, the hallway instantly transforms into the straightened version, but there's a little bit of camera trickery to make it look like it did something special. Here's another angle to get a better look. No, yeah, remember that scene where you have to rescue the carpenters from the Gerudo base? Well, those Gerudo guards seem to come out of nowhere. Where do they come from, and where do they go? Well, when we move the camera out, we can actually see that the Gerudo guards just kind of pop in and just drop from the ceiling, and alternatively, when they leave, they essentially do just the opposite. They jump up and disappear. I feel bad about this one. Well, so we're in the haunted wasteland of Gerudo Valley, and my goal here, of course, is to try to get as much of the desert as I can into one shot. Well, I think there's a special effect here that goes beyond just fog that simply doesn't allow me to do it. I believe there's also a sandstorm effect that they added into the game that, unfortunately, I have no way of removing, but I don't want to leave you guys high and dry. So what I decided to do was, I looked up on Google to see if there was any images that had maybe the entire haunted wasteland into one shot, and it looks like this is a genuine image. Now, I'm not sure how they managed to pull this off, but if you look really closely, all the assets that you're seeing are all the same textures that are used in the actual game, so I have some semblance of faith that this is how it's actually supposed to look. And plus, while I was moving the camera around, this image looks very accurate to what I was seeing, so I believe it. Okay, so anyone who's seen the Majora's Mask episode is already spoiled over what's going to happen next. But check it out, Iron Knuckles in Ocarina of Time. So what's underneath the... Okay, you know it. Beta Noboru, Nabeta is underneath the Iron Knuckle in this game as well.
Now here we are at the Spirit Temple. Link's already got his treasure, but let's see what hidden secrets and goodies we'll find in this scene. Nabaru is being captured by Twinrova, and we can see her getting sucked into this purple vortex. Some may suggest that her character model disappears completely when it's off screen. But to our surprise, Nabaru is still in an idle position just as the scene is about to end. Looking at the witches, Portal, and the sage herself is kinda creepy. Talk about a terrible fate.
Alright, it's time to play another round of Where's the Boss? And obviously the first place we're always going to check now is below. And oh, okay, we found one. We seem to have found, okay, so we found Kotake, but where's Kiwame? And as it turns out, Kiwame and Kotake are in the exact same position and the exact same spot, so therefore, there they both are. And the reason why we were able to figure this out is that when we move the camera around, we can see that the blue texture on Kotake's head starts to clip, which allows us to see the red texture on Kiwame. So I got a lot of requests to do Ganon's Castle, and I don't blame them. And actually, it turned out to be a much better suggestion than I originally thought, because if we look at Ganon's Castle as it is when you're first approaching it, it's actually not that impressive because, well, what you see is what you get. Once you move the camera a little bit behind it, there's no more castle to look at. Try to look at it from an eagle's eye view, you start to find that there's no textures where you could not see it in the game. However, there are multiple models used to depict Ganon's castle. For example, once you've defeated Ganon and you're ready to leave the castle, all the outdoor areas of the game show you a much better idea of what Ganon's castle is supposed to look like. So if we move the camera around at this time, suddenly there's a lot more detail to the top portion of Ganon's castle, or just the castle in general. So maybe not as many people are going to appreciate this as much as I do, and if you do, let me know. But I've always wanted a better look at the final form of Ganondorf. Ganon. Ganon's a big deal to me, and they kind of hide him in the shadows at the end of Ocarina of Time. In a very brief moment, you are allowed to see what he looks like with full lighting, but of course the game kind of rushes you into delivering that final blow, so you're not really given a whole lot of time to get a good look at him. Well, what I've done here is, in his final moments, I've slowed the game down to 10% of its original speed, and now we are taking the camera around just to get a good little tour of Ganon's body. That sounded awful, but you know what I meant. Anyway, as you can see, a lot of Ganon's body is a throwback to classic Ganon, where his fur in this form has a bluish tint to it, much like the original Ganon in the original game. And of course, many of Ganondorf's primary features are also present in this form of Ganon, such as the red locks and the Gerudo garb. So here's a fun fact. The ending to Ocarina of Time on the GameCube version is pre-rendered. So for everyone who wanted to know where Navi went at the end of the game, on the GameCube version we can't find out because they converted the ending into a video. Imagine my heart breaking the second that I found that out. Thankfully, there are a lot of very passionate fans of Boundary Break, and I got the help of someone named Zach, and he hooked me up with a Nintendo 64 version of the game that was at the very end as well. So I managed to get the footage just in time for this episode. Thank you, Zach. Thank you so much. And so where does Navi go at the end of the game? Well, she's just hanging out in front of the window. Well, that was kind of anticlimactic. Oh, look, it's the last cutscene with Zelda and Link. What's below Zelda's garden? Would you look at that? It's Navi! She's cheering Link on from the grave. How beautiful. Thank you, Navi.
Throughout your groove.
Yeah.
Gotcha!
Whew, so the journey is finally over. Wow. So with the Sonic Adventure, filming outside, getting all these guests, getting Michael Chin back to do that intro for this episode, it feels nice to be back in this room. But I digress. This was the biggest episode I've ever done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know that there was a lot of personalities bouncing around in the episode, so I really enjoyed it. I hope that you did too. Wow, it's been so long I forget what I even do here anymore. Okay, we're gonna go back to polls, but first we're going to do the Paper Mario episode. But you can vote in the polls now, and after the Paper Mario episode, we can do that episode. So it's gonna be Banjo-Kazooie, or Woo! Oh, we got a Banjo-Kazooie fan in the room. Well, we got two actually. So it's gonna be either Banjo-Kazooie or Mystery.
Banjo-Tooie.
Someone suggested that. I was like,
really?
Yeah, I was like, no, I can't do that. So mystery game down below, and decide what game's gonna be next week. So, all right. Well, I think that's it. I'm just thrilled to death that we can get back to a normal schedule again. Next episode shouldn't take nearly as long to come out as this one. And as much as I'm happy, as happy as I am with how this episode turned out, I am so glad to be back to normal. Pat, thanks for coming back.
I do what I can.
Thanks for coming back to my room.
That's creepy as that sounds.
Yeah, that wasn't right.
It's cool though. It's cool.
Goodness. Okay. Well, that's a great way to end the episode. I'll see you guys next week. Later.